talking about Mercury is in retrograde. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but check this out.
Back it up. Retrograde like Mercury.
The Commonwealth alleges that Karenread said, I hit him, and that we were going to hear testimony from multiple first responders to that effect. The previous video, I dug into what the law enforcement officers stated, and none of them testify to her saying, I hit him. Now, let's look at what the paramedics said on the stand.
As I was ventilating at the head, there was a small delay in just getting equipment, nothing significant, just enough time that as I was ventilating, I was able to ask, did anybody see anything? What happened? And there was one individual that replied several times, I hit him.
And did you know that individual at that time?
I did not.
Can you describe the individual that said that?
I would describe her as mid-40s, average build, average height. And the other two, very similar.
And with reference to that statement of I hit him, is that something that she said once or more than once or something?
It was several times.
And as far as the tone or demeanor, how loudly was this being said?
As previously stated, they seemed to be erratic. There was a lot going on in that scene. It did seem to be said over and over and at varying volumes. And then there was just a lot of, everybody appeared to be quite flustered.
And the individual, one of the three females that said that, what, if any, observations did you make as to her face or anything?
The individual that said, I hit him, appeared to have some blood on her face, presumably for attempting CPR prior to our arrival.
And
you indicated that you were not present when your colleague, Katie McLaughlin, was questioning anybody at the scene, correct?
Correct.
She's tasked with that responsibility, but you did not engage with her.
Correct.
Meaning, when I say engage with her, you weren't standing there with her.
No, I was in the back of the ambulance.
Okay. You claim to have heard this statement, I hit him,
yes,
several times from the woman with blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic.
Correct.
Hysterical.
Correct.
You said, for lack of a better term, running around in circles.
Yes.
She seemed despondent or distraught.
Very distraught.
Very upset.
Yes.
Was she saying anything else that you recall?
To me, I heard I hit him, and then I went back, obviously continuing on patient care, focusing on patient care.
Did you hear her say, could I have hit him?
I heard I hit him.
That's what you believe at this point?
That's what I heard.
Okay. Where exactly were you?
I was crouched at the head of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. You were asked that exact question at the grand jury, correct? To describe where you were and who was doing what?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You were asked the question when you spoke to her and she said, I hit him, were you with the other representatives, sir, there at the time? Were there other people around you? Do you remember being asked that question by a grand juror?
I don't recall.
Do you remember answering, no, there were other people around me. I had paramedics Flamati with me. I believe firefighter Kelly was there as well.
Correct. So the three of us were all providing patient care around Mr. O'Keefe.
And you indicated that we were all there together. You were kneeling and you were doing the airway while you called him Tony.
Yes, that's Anthony Tony. Yes.
All right. He was doing the CPR, correct?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Great. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him? Directly to the female, and she answered your question with, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview, is it?
I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Let's start at the beginning. Do you remember having a conversation with Trooper Proctor on February 8th?
I do.
That was obviously much closer in time than your grand jury testimony, correct?
Correct.
And years closer in time than your testimony now.
Correct.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene?
To another female, as I stated, I heard several times I hit him. In terms of who that was directed towards, I mean, again, focused on patient care.
Understood. My question was a little bit different. Do you recall telling Trooper Proctor specifically that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene. And the other female told Karen to be quiet.
I do recall that.
Okay. That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that story has changed to you posed a question and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So when ventilating a patient, typically that is also used to gather information from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
But you'll agree that your testimony today has changed from what it was from your statement to Trooper Proctor on February 8th.
I don't know if it would so much say change, sir. To be honest, I don't fully recall that meeting with Mr. Proctor.
So you don't, I'm sorry.
I remember meeting with him. However, I don't fully remember what was discussed.
So it's fair to say that your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame.
Absolutely.
Okay. When you went to the hospital with the patient, did you ever inform any of the doctors or nurses or medical professionals at the hospital that you had heard a female claim to have hit Johnokeefe, and that's the reason for his injuries?
I did not give the report to the hospital.
So the answer to that is no.
No.
You did not. Once you got back to the station and to take a breath, did you write any report?
I did not. No, I did not write the patient care report.
So you didn't write a report, just to finish my question, you didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you had a report that said that.
Correct.
And you did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
Okay. At any time that day or any day subsequent thereto, did you contact the Canton Police Department, which were the first responders?
I did not.
So let me finish my question. And say, by the way, just so you know, I heard this woman say, I hit him out of the scene.
I did not.
Did you ever, on that day or any day subsequent thereto, contact the Massachusetts State Police and say, I heard this person say I hit him?
I did not.
So the first time you ever repeated that statement was on February 8th with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
And by the time we've come full circle to today, that statement has now pivoted.
In terms,
You didn't you didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now, she's talking directly to you now.
she spoke directly to me, yes.
Purposes, when you were asked about some statements that were attributed to you to Trooper Proctor during an interview, correct?
Correct.
And so, with regard to what you recall differently, is it the statement that the person, the female with the blood on her face, made to you, or the statement of the other female telling that person to be quiet?
So as stated, real quick, down and dirty, I asked, do you know this person? To which I hit him. And then in the background, I remember hearing over and over, I hit him. That was kind of pushed towards the back, and patient care took priority, if that answers your question.
So, paramedic Timothy Nuttall tells us on cross that he had a moment where he was able to directly ask Karenread about Johnokeefe, the patient. And her reply to him was, I hit him. Then the defense goes into cross, and we hear that maybe his statement to Trooper Proctor was different and that it changed before the grand jury and then changed again today on the stand. So let me know in the comments below what you think of his testimony.
Or as your conversation with Ms. Reed, what any questions did you ask in regard to as a demographics or anything else?
So do you have any information of who this is? How are they here? Tried to get any type of information we could from her at that time, but with no luck.
When you say with no luck, what if any response did you receive from Ms. Reed in regard to your question?
So the only response that I was personally given was just, I hit him. Oh my God, I hit him.
And when she's saying, I hit him, oh my God, I hit him, how loudly is she saying that?
So she was within 2 feet of me, but very loud. Any type of follow-up questioning, did you hit him with your hand? Did you kick him? What happened? She just repeated the phrase over and over again, I hit him.
And just to be clear, where does this conversation occur?
This was as we're bringing equipment over to the patient. The interventions are going to be started basically by whoever gets over to the scene first. I'm trying to gather information as a lead paramedic to try and coordinate interventions and therapy to kind of holistically be the team leader in that situation and treat and transport the patient. So it was on approach to the patient, probably halfway between the ambulance and the patient.
Paramedic Flamati also testifies on direct that he heard Karenread say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Now he goes on to tell us exactly where they were when he asked this question and when she stated this. Let's see what happened on cross.
That conversation that you had with Ms. Reed at the scene, that had to have lasted, I'm not guessing it was very long, but it had to have lasted a minute
At most, yeah.
at most. Once you finished your conversation with Ms. Reed, did you then start attending specifically to the chest compressions and the high-level CPR that we've heard so much about from your colleague?
Yes.
As you're doing the CPR on the scene, that high-level CPR, high-quality CPR, was Mr. O'Keefe then moved to the scoop, which would then facilitate getting him on a gurney.
Correct.
That gurney was then moved between a couple of patrol cars, cruisers, and into the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
Once you were in the ambulance, the first priority is to get this person warm. Is that right?
First priority is always going to be CPR. The secondary would be getting them warmed up.
Okay. So obviously, when you got into the ambulance, you would shut the doors.
Correct.
There's a heater on in the ambulance.
Yes.
You never came back out of that ambulance after you got Mr. O'Keefe into the ambulance, did you?
No.
Okay.
To save you about 20 minutes of I don't know, I don't recall, and I can't tell, I clipped out the portions of testimony in this so you can see the video in full, the best that we can see it from the courtroom camera. To help you understand which one is Karen, you can tell that it's her because her hair is exposed. The other two women have on coats with their hoods up. Flamati testified that he was doing the chest compressions, and you can see that in the yellow figure to the very left in the upper video. There's a line underneath officer, and you see this yellow figure doing up and down motions, doing chest compressions. Now, Flamati will go on in his testimony and say that maybe he wasn't doing them the whole time. He can't recall if he did them the entire time or if someone switched off. But as you can see as the video plays, it doesn't look like anyone switches out from the chest compressions. Now, this is just my opinion, but I don't see an opportunity where Flamati had to have this conversation with Karen. Apparently, it took place prior to this as he was headed over or as he was doing the chest compressions, which is also what the previous firefighter that we heard from, Nuttall, he said that that's when he had this conversation with Karen. As you can see, she's back here by the cars. Now, at this moment, the person that Johnokeefe, that is who was in the hood next to Karen, is speaking with is a law enforcement officer. I do believe Seraph based on the size. Sorry about the glitches. It's because the camera feed, they were moving around between the footage and the attorney as well as Flamati giving testimony. That part that just happened where you see the yellow coat move off of the screen right after the camera pans back to the video is when they take Officer O'Keefe to the ambulance. That's him on the gurney as they're moving over to the ambulance. And that is the last time you will see Officer O'Keefe as well as the paramedics, firefighters that were attending to him in the video. The new yellow coat that enters is believed to be Firefighter McLaughlin. Sorry, I forgot her name. Firefighter McLaughlin. At this point, all of the other firefighters besides McLaughlin are in the back of the ambulance attending to Officer O'Keefe, according to multiple testimonies. However, paramedic Flamati, he cannot remember if he went directly to the ambulance or if he did something else. He said it's possible he could have done something else, like go back to the scene and pick up equipment. But you can still see the scene in the left-hand corner of the upper video.
Did you see any place in that video where you had any sort of detailed conversation with my client?
No.
Did you see any place in that video where you engaged my client and said, how'd you get here? What happened? And she said, I hit him. And you said, how'd you hit him? All the stuff that you testified earlier to.
I didn't see that in the video, no.
You indicated in a police report during an interview that you had with Yuri Butnik on February 8th. that my client said, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
You remember having that conversation with Sergeant Buchnick?
I don't recall the conversation, but I'm trusting that your records are accurate.
Is it true that during that conversation, you indicated to Sergeant Buchnick that, quote, Katie spoke with Karenread. Katie is Katie who?
McLaughlin.
Katie spoke with Karenread, collecting medical history for the victim, and was also told by Karen that the last time she saw the victim was 1 a.m. that morning. That is when Anthony, who's Anthony?
Would have been myself.
That is when Anthony heard Karen say, I hit him, I hit him. Is that what you told Sergeant Buchnick?
I don't recall.
Does it appear that this is the time, firefighter Flamani, that Katie McLaughlin is getting a medical history from my client, or attempting to?
I can't tell from the video. No.
You do know, however, that during this time, you're in an ambulance, probably 30 or 40 feet away, with the doors closed.
I don't know.
But you certainly don't see yourself in that frame, do you?
Doesn't appear to be. No.
Good. If we're done with the videos, can we take it down, please?
Of course, yes, I think we are correct.
Lead paramedic.
Lead paramedic, thank you. You understood, obviously, the gravity of hearing a statement like, I hit him, some sort of an explanation about what may have happened to the victim, correct?
Correct.
That statement could potentially have direct relationship to, or a direct relational impact on how life-saving measures are done by the medical personnel that you turn the victim over to.
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you wanted, once you got to the hospital, you wanted to be as quote-unquote helpful as possible when you handed over the patient, correct?
Correct.
You said you actually stayed at Good Samaritan for an additional 10 to 20 minutes, which is your habit in cases like this, because you wanted to be quote-unquote an asset to the medical intervention team, correct?
Correct.
That team includes the doctors and nurses that were trying to provide life-saving services to Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
But you never relayed to a single doctor or a single nurse a single word about a woman who said, I hit him, did you?
Documentation for us ends at transfer of patient care. As far as my memory, I do remember relaying that information to the doctors and nurses.
You do?
Yes.
Have you ever testified about that ever previous to this?
Never been asked about that.
Oh, nobody ever asked you, so you didn't tell anybody.
In the court setting? No.
Testified in front of a grand jury, didn't you?
Yes.
Mr. Lally asked you a bunch of questions.
Yes.
During the course of that conversation that was under oath, did you ever disclose that you told the doctors and the nurses that you heard a woman say, I hit him?
I recall telling the doctors and nurses that there's a question of that the patient was hit by a vehicle or we don't know, is what I directly said to the doctors and nurses.
You directly told the doctors and nurses that there was a question about whether or not he was hit by a vehicle, right?
Yes.
Have you ever said that in any context, either to the police or in a grand jury before today?
I don't recall.
You were asked a bunch of questions yesterday, the day before yesterday and this morning by Mr. Lally.
Yes.
Did you say it on your direct examination?
I wasn't asked that question.
So since Mr. Lally didn't ask you, you just left it out, that you told the doctors, the medical professionals, that in fact you described that this patient was likely hit by a car.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You wrote a report as well, correct?
Yes.
We talked a little bit about that report. There's an area in the report for a narrative
Yes.
about your observations, your experiences with this patient, correct?
Correct.
Your job as a lead paramedic is to be as detailed as possible, correct?
Correct.
You want to provide and impart the most detail you possibly can about an incident to assist in medical intervention, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at page 3 of 5 of your report.
Yes.
You see that narrative area?
I do.
Can you point to that portion of your report where you indicate that my client said the words, I hit him?
It doesn't say that.
Can you point to your report, the portion of your report where you indicate that you told the doctors and nurses that she said, I hit him?
It doesn't say that.
Can you point to that portion of your report where you indicate that your concern for the patient was that he had been hit by a car?
It doesn't say that.
You indicated on direct examination that you were, quote unquote, looking for anything that we could pass on to the emergency room that would assist.
Yes.
I think it might have been an assistance to the emergency room personnel to indicate that you believe this person had been hit by a car.
Objection.
Sustained.
Believe that that would have been an important piece of information to pass on to the emergency room assistants.
Objection.
I'll let him have that.
Thanks. It would have been important, yes.
And it's nowhere in your reports, correct?
It's not in the reports, no.
You didn't tell that to the police when you were interviewed 8 days later.
I was not asked about how or what I was.
My question is, did you tell the police 8 days later, or 9 days later when you were interviewed? And you didn't tell the grand jury that, correct?
No.
And you didn't mention that on direct examination in front of these jurors, did you?
No.
A conversation in which you heard the defendant say, I hit him, and the conversation that firefighter McLaughlin had in which the defendant told her, I hit him. Those are two separate conversations, correct?
Correct.
Happened at two different times, two different locations, and you weren't even present for Ms. McLaughlin's statement, correct?
Correct.
You did, when you were interviewed by the trooper and when you testified before the grand jury, you indicated in both instances that the defendant said to you, I hit him, repeatedly, correct?
Correct.
You indicated that when you heard this phrase, I hit him, that your response was, did you hit him with your hand, right?
Yes.
Did you kick him?
Yes.
Did you punch him?
Yes.
That's what you previously testified to, correct?
Yes.
Nowhere in that conversation, did you ever suggest, did you hit him with your car?
I don't recall if I asked her specifically about that.
So now you don't recall about that either.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And for the first time in any forum, you're telling this jury that you then thought, based on that conversation that was attended to the video that we just watched, you believed that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a car and that she said she did it.
I did not say that. So what, am I allowed to respond?
Yes.
So I left it open-ended to the staff of the hospital that these are both possibilities of what happened to the patient.
And of course, if you had said that to the staff of the hospital, the staff of the hospital would certainly have put it in some of the medical reports, correct?
They don't have to. It's really up to them.
And you're aware that none of those have that statement.
I'm not aware.
Originally, when I put this video together, I put all of the paramedics' testimony into one video, but it was over 40 minutes long. So going back through, I decided this was a good break because Anthony Flamati's testimony was so long, I had to keep it together. In part 2, you'll hear a very different testimony from paramedics Walsh and Kelly. And then we'll wrap it all up with firefighter/paramedic Katie McLaughlin.